Hello, my posse. Hello, all my new subscribers. Mwah. I love you. Thank you for stopping by today. I know some of you have emailed me wanting to know my spirit stories. So I'm about to tell you my two spirit. Actually, it's more like a spiritual phenomenon. And some of you have probably had this happen to you. And honestly, if you have, and you would like me to tell your story, and it's okay with you, put it in the comment. Tell me your story, and I will do a video on you about your encounters that you've had with maybe a loved one that's passed over. So today, if you're interested, please stay tuned. And at the end, I'm going to do a little memorial tribute to a very special person that just passed away in my family a week ago. And I hope that you enjoy her tribute because she was a remarkable person. But first, let's get on to my spiritual phenomenons. Stay tuned. So yeah, you know, some of you know my Uncle Pete. I've told stories about my Uncle Pete before and how my Uncle Pete meant so much to me as a child growing up. He meant the world to me. He gave to me all the way through my life. He was a single uncle, never been married. He was my dad's middle brother, and he just loved me and my cousin in Pennsylvania also. He just was so generous to us. And Uncle Pete was, he always had a nickname for me. Well, you know that I'm Babs. That's always been my name, Babs. Well, Uncle Pete, from Babs, he got Bibs. And then from Bibs, he started calling me Tibbs. And then from Tibbs, he started calling me Tibsy. So I was always, in Uncle Pete's eyes, I was Tibsy. So I would laugh and I'd go, Uncle Pete. It was cute when I was little. And then when I got older, I was like, okay, could you knock off the Tibbs? And he'd say, never. So we joked about it. And I remember one time we were at Hudson's and we were shopping. And I was like browsing around, you know, and just like kids do. I was probably 12, maybe 11. And so I could, in my ear, I could hear Tibbs. Tibsy, and it sounded like a lot of people were calling that name, and I was like, Tibbs, Tibsy, Tibbs, Tibsy, and I like popped my head around a corner, and I saw some lady going, Tibsy, Tibsy, and I'm standing right next to her, and she's going, Tibsy, Tibsy, your uncle's looking for you, Tibsy, and I'm like, I'm Tibsy. And it was funny because I was 11 years old, but I was like 5'3", and I was probably 175 pounds. So here comes this, they're expecting this little girl, this little 2-year-old or 4-year-old to walk around the corner as they called Tibsy. And I was so embarrassed, and here comes Uncle Pete, and he goes, oh, Tibsy, where were you? And these people are looking at me and went, oh, that's Tibsy? Like, yeah, I'm Tibsy. I was like, I said, see, Uncle Pete, I told you not to call me Tibsy. They think I'm a little kid. So we really laughed about that anyway. So I was always Tibsy. So Uncle Pete passed away quite a few years back now, probably maybe 15 years ago. And he moved to another state. So again, I never got an opportunity to spend much more time with him back and forth. We visited him a couple times, but life gets in the way. And so he passed away, and I did get to speak to him the night before he passed away. But I was probably maybe, I don't know, 2-3 years later, I was talking to a friend of mine about Uncle Pete and about, gosh, I said, I just, he's never come to me, and I miss him so much, and I hope everything's okay. Now keep in mind that nobody knew I was Tibsy except Uncle Pete and my mom and dad and maybe my sister. nobody knows my name. That was the name that was just never, nobody knew. Nobody knew. So like I was like feeling really sentimental about Uncle Pete one day, and so I'm in my office and I open up my email, and all of a sudden it says, on an email, it said, "Hi Tibbsy." I'm floored just even remembering what happened. And I was like, "Hi Tibbsy." And my heart was pounding, and I opened up this email and it just said, "Congratulations, free gift for you, Tibbsy. Welcome." And it was from Verizon Wireless. And that's all it said. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I call Verizon Wireless, and I'm trying to talk to customer service and ask them, well, where did this, they had no idea. They said, I have no idea. I mean, you're due for an update, but I have no idea. And I'm like, okay, so this is strange. No, why would Verizon say hello Tibbsy to me? I don't know. So I let it go, and 2 more days later, here comes another one. "Hi Tibbsy." Open it up again. It said, "You haven't collected your free gift yet. Please call Verizon Wireless." And that was it. I called Verizon Wireless again. Nobody ever heard of that. Nobody said such a thing. I sent the email to Verizon. I linked it to a letter. You know what? I don't even think anybody ever got back to me on it. It was like a strange phenomenon. So some way, somehow, Uncle Pete wanted me to know that maybe he didn't have a present for me or a gift for me, but that was a gift for me, because nobody knew to call me ever Tibbsy. I didn't have it in a password. I didn't have it anything. So if you can explain it to me or what you think, put it in the comments below. But I was grateful to hear from him. I took it like he was saying hello to me and that he's okay, and that, you know, I was a gift to him. That's the way I took it. So that was my Tibbsy spiritual phenomenon that I cherish. And I wish I would have copied that email and printed it, but I never did. And I wish I would have had it to this day, but it's here and it's here. So, and the other story was just, it's kind of a crazy one, but my mom, I was telling my grandkids a couple of weeks ago, actually. I was telling my grandkids a story about my mother, and about, they were arguing back and forth or something, and then, you know how kids go, they'd say, "Oh, I'm going to tell Mom, I'm going to tell Mom." And I'd say, you know, you guys got to stop that, you know, because my mother was like that. I mean, bless her soul, you know, I've talked about my mom before, but she had a habit of kind of like, there was just me and my sister, and she always had a habit of telling my sister stuff about me, and then me and my sister used to fight sometimes in life, and we never had an argument in our lives, but we were always mad, it seemed like, at something, because my mom would start some little thing or tell my sister something I said, or, and you know, I always tell the kids, don't be that kind of kid. You know, if your sister tells you something, keep it to yourself, and vice versa. Don't tell your mom unless it's something important that your mother has to know, of course, but don't be that person. And I said, my mom was like that. And so I was like, they were like, oh, that's too bad that, you know, she was like that. And I go, yeah, you know, because it caused a lot of kind of friction between me and my sister sometimes growing up, because she was mad at me and I was mad at her. And honest to gosh, to this day, we've never had an argument. But it's just always been that something my mother started. I don't know. So anyway, I had told the kids the story that night. And after I told the kids that story, I got this chill, like this funny chill. This just kind of came over me, and I was like, ooh, I don't know. So I passed it. I fluffed it off. And so I go, you know, the next morning, my husband went to work, actually, a couple of weeks ago. I took the kids to school, and I came back, and I laid in bed, and I was catching up on my videos. And all of a sudden, now you've heard me talk about my mother's Estee Lauder perfume smell. I have nothing in the house that's Estee Lauder, nothing at all. And so all of a sudden, across my bed, there was that Estee Lauder smell. But it was like wisping. It was going by really, really, really quick, you know, back and I would move over to the side, and there it was. I mean, it was strong. It was up my nose, and so I got up, and I laid back down again, and I thought, okay, it's kind of gone. Next thing I know, now you're going to say you're crazy because this happens, because it's happened. The power glitched in the house. So, okay, so sometimes it wasn't raining, the sun was out last week, a couple weeks ago it was. There was nothing in the air that the power would glitch, but it can happen. So, and it happens sometimes when your power glitch, your clocks will go crazy and your clocks will go haywire and you'll go, okay. So, all of a sudden, now I hear my computer going beep, 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 beep. My alarm system, I have an alarm on the house, the alarm was going off. I get up, I walk into the kitchen, and here's my mother's smell in the kitchen. I walk in the kitchen, my dishwasher's going off. Now you know when you get a power failure, I'm sorry, but your dishwasher doesn't go off. The coffee pot turned on. The microwave was beeping. Every clock in the house was blinking except the clock on the stove. Everything that I had electrical was going off and beeping in the house. And I figured, oh boy, Mom's mad because I told the story. And I turned around and I was like, okay. And I walked into shut the alarm system off because the alarm was going off and the police were being dispatched. My phone was going off. And I was like, okay, Mom, sorry. I was just telling the kids a story. I didn't mean anything by it. I love you. It's okay. Next thing you know, everything went back to normal. The clocks went back to normal on their own. The dishwasher stopped. The coffee pot stopped. It was the strangest thing. I got on the phone. I called my husband. I was like shaking. He goes, well, it was a power failure, and you'll probably say that too. And I've had them before. The power glitches, the TV goes off, the cable goes off, but my dishwasher never came on, my coffee pot never came on, the microwave never beeped. I mean, it just was like poof. It all went off at once. So I figured she was pretty mad at me for telling my grandkids that she might have caused a little trouble there, I mean, sorry. So everything stopped after I said, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I was just trying to make the kids laugh, making a point. Sorry it was on you. And next thing you know, everything was back to normal. So that was my 2 spiritual phenomenons. So if you have one that you'd like to tell me, I'll be glad. If you don't mind, I'll be glad to tell the story. So on that note, I would like to tell you a bit about a very, very, very family member that passed away. And this is a tribute to her. So stay tuned with me for a minute. So yes, I hope this is okay. I felt like, I hope I can get through this. My sister-in-law, hold on. My sister-in-law passed away Memorial night. And hold on, let me just tweak myself here, I'll be back. My sister-in-law passed away Memorial Day night, actually May 30th. She passed peacefully in her sleep. And I'm mentioning her because I have a moral to the story and a spiritual part of this story. My sister-in-law was my first husband's sister. And Loretta and I were friends before I even married her brother. We were that close. She was just a very, very wonderful person. She knew I was having problems even with her brother during our marriage. She was just always there for me. She never picked sides. She never talked bad about him, but yet she understood me. Anyway, we were very, very close. And when I divorced her brother, she still kept a friendship with me. We bonded from the time we met. We both had 2 kids, both going through divorce. We were just we were just good friends. She was a kind of a person that always had a smile for you. Like you hear people say, you know, smile, bring a smile to someone, smile at someone, you might get one back. My beautiful friend Kaye Carter on here, daily dose of inspiration. I love Kaye Carter. Sometimes she does some videos just at the time I needed one, and she did that the other day, and I was just grateful. Anyway, I'm just gonna to say I really miss Loretta. She was like a really, really good friend, along with being a really good sister-in-law. Despite the problems that I had with her brother, she was just by my side. We hung around together when we were divorced. Man, we cut a rug. We did some mischief, I'll tell you, back then, but laughed through it all. She had some, you know, things happening in her life. I've had things happen in my life, but we were kind of always there. Never like talked on a daily basis, but we were always there for each other, and we did talk. And I really miss her, and I'm going to insert some pictures of this beautiful soul who touched my heart. And the point of this is when her son, my nephew, Robbie, he messaged me Memorial Day, the next day, May 31st, and had told me that his mom had passed away peacefully in her sleep. I instantly was shattered because I was supposed to have called her. Like I kept telling her, Loretta, I'll call you next week. I'll call you next week. I promise I'll call you next week. And you know what? I got busy. Denny was sick. I got tied up. It was like I had no time to make that call. And then 2 weeks went into 3 weeks and went into 4 weeks. And I kept telling my husband every day, I've got to call my sister. I got to call my sister. And I never made that call. And I was feeling so awful when I got the message. And I went to bed with a very heavy heart. And of course, talking to her and apologizing. And so about 3:10 in the morning, I was jolted up by like an arm on my shoulder. And I looked over and I thought it was my husband. I thought maybe, am I having a sleep paralysis moment, and I forgot about it, and he's shaking me, and I jumped up and I looked at the clock and it was like 3:10, and I look over at my husband and he was sleeping, and I turned around to this side and I looked over and it was my sister-in-law. And I told my nephew she had on this beautiful white kind of gown with laciness, and she had her hand on my shoulder. I could feel the pressure on my shoulder. And I looked up and she had this big smile on her face like she always had, which you'll see in a couple of pictures. She had the greatest smile. And I think she was trying to tell me that it was okay, that she knew I loved her, and it was okay that I didn't call her. Yeah, and she was kind of at peace, but I just remembered that smile. And I said to her, I looked right at her, this beautiful soul, this person in front of me, and I said, Loretta, I'm so sorry. I love you. And she just smiled at me, and she gave me a nod, and as quickly as she came, she was gone. And I never did go back to sleep. I just felt her presence there. And I think if I have a moral of any story to tell you, is make time for people. Sometimes you get busy and you go, oh, I got to call so-and-so, or maybe you're mad, or we're never promised tomorrow. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And if you have somebody that you want to call or that you need to reach out to them, call them, stop what you're doing. I did that one time with a boss of mine who was the most wonderful man in the world. And he hired me right out of high school with no experience, and I just was so grateful to him. And I had worked for the company for a while, and I had left, and I kept in touch with him a little bit. Well, then I had my son, and You know, you just forget about people that are been good to you. And I was in the kitchen and I was making a cake, and I stopped exactly what I was doing at that particular moment, and I ran to the phone. Frank Bishop was his name. If there's any bishops that knew Frank Bishop that are related, God, get in touch with me. But I ran to the phone and I called him, and his wife answered the phone, and she said, "Oh, you know, Frank, he didn't have such a good night last night." And Frank always had indigestion. He was always taking Alka-Seltzer for his indigestion, always. Anyway, I called him and I talked to him, and we talked for like 45 minutes and laughed and joked, and I thanked him. I said, "Frank, I want to just take this moment now that I thought about you. Thank you so much for always hiring me and for always believing in me, even though I was just this kid out of high school, and you took a chance with me, and I appreciate that." And we chatted and stuff, and then hung up, and I went back into the kitchen. And my son had eaten all the cake out of the bowl, but that was okay. So I felt really good about that. And 2 days later, Frank passed away from a massive heart attack. And I felt good that I did that. And so I wish I would have done the same for my sister-in-law, because even though we talked, we emailed, we Facebooked back and forth, I owed her that call. Anyway, I owed her that call, and I hope she knows, and I think she does because she came to me. I hope she knows that I love her. So I'm just asking for some prayers for her family and all of us. She was a really good person, and I love you. Thanks for listening, and believe in spirits, because trust me, they're there. And I love believing in phenomenons that happen, because I do believe that people come back to you and tell you things in sometimes crazy ways like my mother, and sometimes tipsy ways like my uncle, and sometimes people who just want to say that they're sorry, like, or they're happy and they've moved on and they forgive you. But make time for somebody, and go call somebody that maybe you're thinking of, because you may not get that chance. So in memory of you, Loretta, I love you, and I love all of you for watching. Thanks for staying tuned, and I'll see you next time. God bless you all. Bye.